Jnana Karma Sanyasa Yoga.
Bhagavadgita. Chapter 4. Jnana Karma Sanyasa Yoga. Yoga of renunciation of action in knowledge. In the previous chapter, Sri Krishna advocated the path of Karma Yoga as a method to realize the self. For fear that Arjuna may misunderstand this advice as the only way for the self-development, Lord Krishna reveals in this chapter how spiritual knowledge is received by successive disciples and the reason and nature of his descent into the material worlds. He also explains the paths of action and knowledge as well as the wisdom regarding the supreme knowledge which results at the culmination of the two paths. Thus this chapter dealing with the paths of action and knowledge is entitled The Yoga of Renunciation of Action in Knowledge. In a way, this chapter can be considered as an appendix to the third chapter. In this chapter we can observe Sri Krishna talking to Arjuna not as his friend or charioteer but as an omnipotent and omniscient God, probably to instill in his mind the necessary reverence and respect for him and his teachings.
Sri Bhagavanu Vacha Imam Vivasvate Yogam Proktavanaham Avyayam Vivaswan Manave Praha Manurishtvagave Bravid.
4.1 Sri Bhagavan said, I taught this eternal yoga to Vivasvan. He taught it to Manu and Manu proclaimed it to Ikshvaku. This eternal yoga means the yoga taught in the second and third chapters. The fruit of this yoga is liberation, which transcends time, space and causality. Hence it is eternal. Vivasvan is the sun god. Manu is the ancient lawgiver. Ikshvaku is the ancestor of Kshatriyas whose lineage goes back to the sun god. Jnana Yoga, discussed in the second and third chapters, is based on renunciation and is attained through the performance of duty. Thus it comprehends both the life of activity, pravritti, and the life of retirement, nivritti, as taught in the Vedas. The path of knowledge has been described through the Gita as leading directly to liberation. Therefore, it is extolled here by pointing out its antiquity.
Evam parampara praptam imam rajarsayo viduhu sakaleneha mahata yogo nasta parantapa.
4.2 This knowledge, handed down thus in regular succession, the royal sages knew. This yoga by long lapse of time has been lost to the world, O Parantapa, Arjuna. The royal sages, men like Rama and Janaka who were kings and at the same time sages also because of their austerities and wisdom, knew this yoga. If the leaders of a country possess the knowledge of yoga, that is, moral values of life, they will percolate down the line into the entire society. The teachings of this yoga were lost by falling into the hands of selfish and unrighteous people. It is the intention of the Lord to revive it through the Gita.
Saevayam maya tedya yoga prokta puratanaha haktosi me sakha cheti rahasyam hetaduttamam.
4.3 That same ancient yoga has been taught to you by me today, for you are my devotee and my friend and it is a supreme secret. The yoga mentioned here is considered secret because it is not commonly known to everybody and that it should be revealed only to those who are worthy to receive it.
Arjuna vacha aparam bhavato janma param janma vivasvataha Kathame tadvijaniyam tvamadau proktavaniti.
4.4 Arjuna said, Later was your birth and earlier was the birth of Vivasvan. How, then, Am I to understand that you taught this yoga in the beginning? The birth of Sri Krishna was later than that of the sun. Arjuna wants to know how he should believe that the former taught this yoga to the latter.
Sri Bhagavanuvacha Bahuni me vyatitani Janmani tava charjuna Tanyaham veda sarvani Natvam vetha param tapa.
4.5 Sri Bhagavan said, Many births of mine have passed as well as of yours, O Arjuna. I know them all but you know them not, O Parantapa. Arjuna with a limited knowledge thinks that Sri Krishna is an ordinary man and not the omnipotent and omniscient Lord. This doubt is cleared here. Sri Krishna knows the past and future because he is the Lord himself. He is unobstructed in his power of vision.
Ajopi sannavyayatma bhudanam iswaropi san prakritim swamadhisthaya sambhavapmya mamayaya.
4.6 Though I am unborn and eternal by nature, and though I am the Lord of all beings, yet subjugating my own nature, I come into being by my own Maya. The Lord is eternal by nature because existence, knowledge, bliss absolute, which forms his nature, is eternal and changeless. My own nature means his inherent power of Maya. Maya inheres in Brahman, but Brahman remains unaffected by it in the same way as the poison of a cobra which is in the cobra but cannot injure it. This power of Maya, which is made up of the three gunas, deludes the embodied being from recognizing the Lord who is his true self. I come into being by my own Maya means that it is through Maya the Lord appears to be born. His embodiment is not real as are the embodiments of other beings. The embodiments of human beings, birth in the human form, are not voluntary. Driven by nature or prakriti, through ignorance, they are born again and again. The Lord controls nature and assumes embodiment through his own free will. The ordinary birth of creatures is determined by the force of nature while the Lord takes birth through his own power. He uses his nature in such a way which is free from subjection to karma. Yoga Maya refers to the free will of God, his incomprehensible power. To put it differently, the embodiment of the Lord is only an appearance. A created being is under the control of Maya, but the Lord is the controller of Maya. The birth and death of the Lord depends upon his own will. But the birth and death of an embodied being are due to the law of karma. This is the difference between an embodied being and the incarnate Lord.
Yada yada hi dharmasya glanirthavati bharata apyutthanam adharmasya tadatmanam srujamyaham.
4.7 Whenever there is a decline of dharma, righteousness, O Bharata, and rise of adharma, unrighteousness, then I manifest myself.
Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge.
4.8 For the protection of the good, for the destruction of the wicked and for the establishment of righteousness, I am born in every age. Whenever there is a serious tension in life, when the all-pervasive materialism invades the hearts of human souls, to preserve the equilibrium, a responsive manifestation of wisdom and righteousness is essential. The Supreme, though unborn and undying, becomes manifest in human embodiment to overthrow the forces of ignorance and selfishness. Avatara means descent, one who has descended. The divine comes down to the earthly plane to raise it to a higher status. The purpose of Avatar is to inaugurate a new world, a new Dharma. By his teaching and example, he shows how a human being can raise himself to a higher grade of life. The issue between right and wrong is the most crucial one. The Lord works on the side of the right. Love and mercy are more powerful than hatred and cruelty. Dharma will conquer adharma, truth wins over falsehood, and power behind death will be overthrown by the reality, Sat Chit Ananda, being, intelligence, and bliss. Dharma means the mode of the being. It is the essential nature of a being that determines its mode of behavior. So long as our conduct is in conformity with our essential nature, we are acting in the right way. Adharma is non-conformity to our nature. Harmony of the world is on account of conformity of all beings to their respective natures. Disharmony of the world is due to their non-conformity. When the freedom given to humans is abused, causing disequilibrium, the Lord does not merely stand aside and allow the things to drift. He, through his manifestation, sets the matter on the right track and lets it jog along by itself while his loving hand is steering it all the time. Sri Krishna says that his manifestations in this world, in every age, are for the following purposes. For the protection of the good. To protect those who lead a life of truth and righteousness, who utilize their bodies in the service of the community, who are free from selfishness, anger, hatred, lust and greed, and who devote their life to divine contemplation. For the destruction of the evildoers. For the elimination of wrong tendencies in those who lead a life of unrighteousness, who break the laws of the society, who are vain, dishonest and greedy, who injure others, who take possession of others' property by force, and who commit all sorts of crimes, and for the establishment of Dharma. When Dharma is protected and wickedness destroyed, society lives according to Dharma and affords opportunities to its members to lead a spiritual life. It connotes cosmic and moral order.
Jnana Karma me divyam evam yo vetti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti sorjuna.
4.9 He who thus knows in true light my divine birth and action, will not be born again when he leaves his body. He will attain me, O Arjuna. After explaining the reasons for his incarnations in this world, Sri Krishna declares that he, who knows the great truth that the Lord, though apparently born, is ever beyond birth and death, though apparently active and the cause of righteousness, is ever beyond all action, becomes illumined with self-knowledge, has realized the ultimate truth. Thus he transcends birth and death in the relative world and attains Brahman.
Vitaraga krodhaha manmaya mamupashritaha bahavo jnana tapasa udamatbhavamagataha.
4.10 Freed from attachment, fear and anger, absorbed in me, taking refuge in me, purified by the fire of knowledge, many have attained my being. The purpose of incarnation is not merely to uphold the world order but to help the human beings to become perfected in their nature. The steps required to be undertaken by beings in this regard are: renouncing attachments to sense objects, becoming desireless, getting free from selfishness, realizing that he is constant, indestructible, eternal self, and that change is merely a quality of the body. When an individual has reached this stage of self-development, he becomes fearless and sees the self everywhere, and in such a state anger cannot arise in him. He is absorbed in him and becomes fully devoted to him. He thus takes absolute refuge in the Lord after getting purified with the fire of this knowledge. The wisdom is referred to here as fire. Just as fire burns everything, the wisdom burns down or completely removes all latent tendencies, impressions, cravings, etc., in an individual and thus makes him pure.
Ye yatha mam pravadyante tamstadhaiva bhajamyaham mama vatmanuvattande manushya partha sarvasah.
4.11 In whatever way men worship me, in the same way I reward them. It is my path that men follow in all things, O son of Pritha. This verse brings out the wide Catholicity of the Gita religion. God meets every aspirant with favor and grants to each his heart's desire. He does not extinguish the hope of any but helps all hopes to grow according to their nature. The Lord bestows pleasure to those who seek pleasure, rewards those who aim liberation, and rescues them from distresses who pray to him, and so on. In whatever form man worships the Lord appears to him in that form. The various deities and cosmic forces, the angels, the prophets, the incarnations, are only different manifestations of the Lord himself. As there are innumerable ideals cherished by men, so there are innumerable forms of the Lord corresponding to those ideals. It is to him alone that man offers worship under different names and forms, through different symbols and rites. Likewise, from him alone comes the fulfillment of all desires, whether they are secular or spiritual. As the self within he brings to fruition all wishes when the necessary conditions are fulfilled. The Atharva Veda says Akam Jyoti Bhayudav Bhati, the one light manifests itself in various forms. The spiritually immature are unwilling to recognize other gods than their own. Their attachment to their creed makes them blind to the larger unity of Godhead. This is the result of egotism in the religious ideas. The Gita on the other hand affirms though beliefs and practices may be many and varied, spiritual realization to which these are the means is one. Doctress Radhakrishnan.
Kangchanda karmanam siddhim yajanda iha devataha chipram himanushe loke siddhir bhavati karmaja.
4.12 Those who long for success in action in this world worship the gods, because success is quickly attained by men through action. Men worship God in this world because they want immediate fruits in terms of pleasures from their activities. Worldly success is much easier of attainment than self-knowledge, which demands perfect renunciation.
Chadurvarnyam maya srishtam gunakarma vibhagasah tasya kartaram abhimam vidya kartaram avyayam.
4.13 The fourfold caste has been created by me according to the differentiation of Jnana and Karma. Though I am the author thereof, know me as non-doer and changeless. This verse explains the diversity of human temperaments and tendencies. All men are not of the same nature because of the preponderance of the different gunas in them. The caste system was originally meant to make the growth of human society perfect. But this principle later on came to be abused and misused by the society, which gave it a totally wrong meaning based on the accident of birth. On the basis of the temperamental distinctions and the quality of thoughts entertained by the individuals, the entire mankind has been, for the purpose of spiritual study, classified as the four castes or varnas, just as people are divided as professionals, merchants, agriculturists and laborers etc., on the basis of activities or vocation pursued by them. For the well-being of the society in general, each class of people is as important and essential as the other. Accordingly, the four castes are Brahmana, where sattva, purity, goodness etc., predominates in thoughts and action. Kshatriya, where rajas, courage, valor etc., predominates in thoughts and deeds. Vaishya, where rajas and tamas, indolence, ignorance etc., predominates. Sudra, where tamas alone predominates. The Lord is the creator of the four castes only from the standpoint of Maya. Maya is the immediate cause of everything that happens in the relative world. But since Maya has no existence independent of the Lord, he is said to be the creator. The Lord with reference to the mind and intellect is the creator of the temperaments, although in his essential nature he is not the doer or the creator, because he is the changeless and all-pervading irrespective of what happens in the creation.
Namam karmani limbandi name karma bhale spruha iti mam yobhijanadi karma bhirna sabathyate.
4.14 Actions do not taint me, nor have I a desire for the fruits of actions. He who knows me thus is not bound by actions. Actions do not taint the Lord because he is totally free from egoism. Since he is unselfish, he is not taking rebirths as meant to reap the fruit of his actions. Anyone who knows his own inmost self to be the Lord, unattached to action and its result, is not bound by action and will not be reborn in the world of Maya. Taint and desire can come only to an ego which is the self functioning through a given state of mind and intellect. The one who has renounced his identification with his limited ego and rediscovered himself as none other than the self is no more affected by his actions in the outer world.
Evam jnatva kridam karma purvairapi mumukshubhihi kuru karmaiva tasmatvam purvai purvataram kritam.
4.15 Having known this, the ancient seekers after liberation performed action. Therefore, you too perform action, as did the ancients in the olden times. Knowing that the self can have no desire for the fruits of actions and cannot be tainted or soiled by them, and knowing that no one can be tainted if he works without egoism, attachment and expectation of fruits, Arjuna is called upon to do his duty as the ancients like King Janaka and others did in the days of yore. The idea is that the ignorant perform action for self-purification, and the wise perform action for the maintenance of the world.
Kim karma kima karmedi kavayopyatra mohitaha tatte karma pravaksyami yajñatvat moksyase subhat.
4.16 What is action? What is an action? As to this even the wise are perplexed. Therefore, I shall tell you what action is, by knowing which you shall be freed from the evil of samsara, the wheel of birth and death. The Lord thus instructed Arjuna to perform action in a disinterested spirit. But one cannot duly perform one's duty without knowing in reality what constitutes action and what inaction is. Therefore the Lord promises to reveal to Arjuna the truth about action, showing its intricate nature and the value of its knowledge, in order that Arjuna may really understand the truth about transcendent actions, which are free from the feeling of possession, the sense of doership, attachment and the desire for fruit. Thus the mystery of action is extremely difficult to unravel.
Karmano hyapi bodhavyam bodhavyam cha vikarmanaha akarmanascha bodhavyam gahana karmano gadihi.
4.17 One has to understand what action really is, and likewise one has to understand what is forbidden action and also what inaction is. Indeed, hard to understand is the way of action. One must not oversimplify action and inaction by thinking that the former means the activity of the body and the latter its idleness. The definition of these three terms is as under. Action: that which is prescribed in the scriptures and not merely approved by men. Forbidden action: that which is forbidden by the scriptures. Inaction: renunciation of action. Activity is the very essence of life. The great seers of ancient days evaluated the life on the basis of the quality of activities. Life is constituted of moments of activity and inactivity. Through inactivity neither progress nor deterioration is ever possible. Periods of activity alone create man. Such creation of man depends upon what type of activity he undertakes. Activity or karma need not imply only ritualism, but it encompasses all dedicated actions. It is known to all that action means movement of the body, etc., and inaction means absence of such movements or to sit quiet. But these two terms imply much more than these familiar ideas. Activity can be broadly classified as constructive and destructive. Constructive activities are termed here as karma, that is, actions to be done, which contribute towards the evolution of an individual. Destructive activities are those which debase the individual and hence totally condemned by the sastras. These are referred to here as vikarma, actions to be avoided. Karma, constructive activity, can be of three types. Nitya karma, constant duties. Naimittika karma, special duties on special occasions, and Kamya karma, duties done expecting rewards. Sri Krishna advises Arjuna to avoid prohibited actions, vikarma, and to pursue the constructive and creative activities of self-development, karma, and to totally reject inactivity, akarma. It is essential that a true Sikha should know the triple classification of activities constituting life. Sri Bhagavan admits that it is not easy to understand these concepts of activities, implying that for evaluating actions one should go beyond the actions as such and look into the motive or desire or intention behind such actions. If motives are pure, actions will be noble, and if motives are impure, so also actions will be mean.
Karmanya karmaya pasyet akarmani cha karmayah sabuddhiman manusyeshu sayukta krishna karma krida.
4.18. He who recognizes inaction in action and action in inaction is wise among men. He is a yogi and a true performer of all actions. This verse conveys the central theme of this chapter. Sri Krishna describes the nature of action and inaction by introducing the concepts of seeing inaction in action and action in inaction. Bhagavan asserts that he who so recognizes is a wise person, a yogi, and is deemed to have performed all actions. Although these terms are common and familiar, they are used in the Gita with special meaning and implications. They are examined here under inaction in action. It is only the ignorant that regard the self as active. But the wise person regards the self as actionless even when he himself is engaged in action. Activity belongs to the senses, the body and the mind. It is a function of the gunas. Action in inaction. The body, the senses and the mind, regarded by the ignorant as actionless, are perceived by the wise to be active. Hence he sees action in what the ignorant think to be inaction. Performed all actions. A wise person devoid of the idea of agency is really a free soul, though he participates in action. Action does not bind him. The terms action and inaction are not rightly understood. The one is mistaken for the other. The Lord tries to remove this misunderstanding. The self of man is actionless. Action pertains to the physical body, the senses and the mind. But an ignorant person falsely attributes action to the self and says to himself that I am the doer, mine is the action, and by me is the fruit of action reaped, and so on. Similarly, he falsely imputes to the self the cessation of activity, which really pertains to the body, the senses and the mind. So he says to himself I shall be quiet, I may be free from work and worry and be happy, and so on. Through right knowledge a man sees inaction in action. He sees that action commonly associated with the self really belongs to the body, the senses and the mind, and that the self is actionless. Likewise, a man with right knowledge sees action in inaction. He knows that inaction is also a kind of action. Inaction is a correlative of action and pertains to the body. The self is beyond action and inaction. Sankara explains that in Atman there is no action. In the body, however, there is no rest. Even when there seems to be rest. He who knows the meaning of action and inaction, as explained above, is wise among men. He is a yogi. He does all action without being bound. He is free from the evil result of action. He has achieved everything.